And welcome back to 5150 Adventures, where today I got the nephew with me and we're doing some more additions to the 52. So what we're doing today is we are getting the ICT billet alternator and power steering bracket on, which that piece is in here. What we're going to do is get these installed, and then over there I have new cap rotor and plugs, or not plugs, wires. So we're going to get everything put back together and then try figuring out why my timing is just off a little bit. I'm thinking I'm off one tooth. We'll get that fixed and then hopefully it'll be back to where it should be. Stay tuned. Alrighty, so I got this installed. There's only one part that I didn't care for about it, and that's all of the hardware that goes into this bar right here. Doesn't have a chamfer. The chamfer is actually on the wrong side of the bar, but if you're just careful and you put it together correctly, and as it comes in the package and you're careful and you don't cross thread it, it's fine. Other than that, I need to get a shorter belt because I think this one, this one's going to be too long, so I need to get a shorter belt by about a ½ inch or an inch, and that should work good for that. You know the old HEI distributors? Yeah, they're awesome. I like them. We're getting rid of it. Why? Well, I got a little something on the way that is going to entail something nice. There is an MSD Pro billet. I stabbed it in to make sure it was going to work really good, that everything was where it should be. It's perfect. So I'm going to pull it back out, lock it out. I'll do a short little video on how to lock it out and then put it back in, because where the battery used to go right there, that's going to be some fun. We're going to put a new blaster coil there and a 6AL Ultra Plus box there. This thing is going to be able to be dialed in no matter how you look at it. I can hook it to my phone, dial it in. I can hook it to a laptop, dial it in. If I want to put nitrous on it, could dial it in with that. It's got a 4-bar map sensor, so that if we decide to run boost, you guessed it, we could dial it in. So, with that being said, while we wait for that to get here towards the end of the week, we've already got the ICT billet camel hump head style alternator brackets on. It is loose, really loose. Like I could just move it with one finger right now. But the other part of this that I have to start doing, and I'm going to have some help come to help me because my arm's all jacked up from work still. We're going to take the power steering pump off because we have the ICT billet bracketry for putting the power steering pump on. Alrighty guys, well, I didn't do a lot of video of putting the power steering pump together. Neighbor came and helped me. They helped me with that. Thank goodness for good quality neighbors. But it is in, and I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. If anything, if you follow the direction, if you follow these directions exactly how they tell you to, it goes together like a breeze. So I feel that this is going to be really nice, no belt squeakage and stuff like that. It is pretty tight. I mean, it's nice. I like it. I will have to get a belt for the alternator because the old one that was on there is pretty worn and cracked and is too long. And then the new one that I bought is way too long, so I'm not going to worry about that. So All right, so first things first, you're gonna pull your distributor out, and it should look something like this. Few key differences is I've got my roll pin already about halfway out. The other side of this is that you have the cap off and screws off the rotor. Next thing you're gonna do is get the cap or the rotor off of the shaft, and then I will get everything kind of set up and show you the next portion. So now next what you're going to do is, if you look here, you have a spring on each side, and then you have these little weights on each side below the spring. You're going to get those off. I'm one-handed right now. I'm using this hand just to prop this up, and I'm going to get those off real quick, and then I'll show you what the next portion of this is going to be, which would be undoing that roll pin the rest of the way out, and then pulling this shaft out. So once you get these little springs off, you're going to get, see if I can hold this right here. You're going to get these little fly weights off of here. Now don't lose any of this stuff because you're going to need it when it goes back together. So now that you have this apart like this where these can move freely, your next thing is you're going to pull that roll pin out the rest of the way, and then pull the shaft out. So as you see, we have the springs, the fly weights, the roll pin, the gear, and then the shims that go on the bottom of this, between there and the gear here. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to pop this out just a little bit. You don't have to go all the way, but if you look under here, there's a little nut. You got to undo that nut now. Now, I believe that's 11/32, which is a weird size. I'm going to find out for sure here in just a second, and then I'll show you how to position this in the right clocked formation. So I know I didn't have to, but I took everything apart and set it out. So now we have the distributor, its shims that go on here, that shim this out just a little bit. We have the washer, the nut, and the spacer that goes on this. Now, when you put this together, you're going to want to take it 180 degrees. So normally that nut rides inside of here, and if you can tell, it's got kind of an oblong shape, and that's what lets it move there to there, there to there, so you can get your timing advanced. Well, you're going to go 180 degrees out, and you're going to put it in here. So this little spacer right here won't be needed. You'll just stick this stud right here at the end of my finger into this hole, and then you'll put the nut back on, and then that is what locks that out. And then I'll show you how this goes back together after that. Silly me, forgot I had my tripod, so I'm going to be able to do all this with you guys actually watching it. So now what you're going to do is, you're going to grab your rod here, and grab this rod, put these together like this. Now, normally this would go like this, and the nut and spacer would be on there, and it would twist inside this pocket right here. But now, what you're going to do is you're going to get, first, you're going to get your spacers. There should be 3 of them, depending on your setup. So, this will slide on here like so. Then what you're going to do is, normally, like I said, this would go like this, and it would allow for this to turn inside of here and move these. Well, you don't want that when you're locking it out. So your next thing you're going to do is turn it around, and then you'll see where it goes into that hole right there, just like so. And then make sure these are where they're supposed to go. Now, honestly, you technically don't need these anymore, I don't think, because you're actually locking it out. So what I would suggest is just pull those out of there, maybe, because they're not allowing this to sit flush. So now you're in here like so. You're going to get your flat washer down on there. And then you don't need this spacer anymore. This was just to hold that nut down far enough so that this could ride inside that oblong space. Then you're going to take your nut, and you're going to get it on there and get it tight. So your next thing is you're going to get your distributor base, put back on to the shaft of your distributor. You're going to get your shims put on, get your gear put on, and then I got to go over to the vise and get this in there, but then you'll tap this in until this is flush with this portion here. Not this portion, but this portion. I'm going to go off camera and get this in really quick, and then I'll bring you back and show you how to install it into the engine. So now that you have your gear installed onto your distributor, what you need to do is get your rotor put back on. Now, mind you, this rotor is not in the best shape, and I'm aware of that, and it will be getting changed out, but for demonstration purposes for right now, it will do. So now we're going to get the cap put back on. Make sure she's good. Yep, she's good. Hold that rotor down, and then you're going to get your hardware put into your rotor. Get your hardware put together. Snug it first. Now, one thing you'll notice is when you have this together, when we had all this hardware inside of this, you could hold the end here and turn this a couple degrees this way and that way. Now you turn this and it doesn't move at all. So now that this is together, we're going to try to get it stabbed into the engine. Okay, on here I have the gasket. We're going to put that on there. That keeps any oil that may travel up on this because of windage or whatever being able to leak out through here. Now, I know for a fact, or close to a fact, that when I put this in at this angle, it's going to pretty well be pretty close. All I got to do is turn it a couple times, just like so, and it drops in. What I just did there was I picked it up and moved it a tooth and then pushed down on it and set it in until it fell all the way to the base down here, so as that we knew that the distributor was all the way in as far as it could go. And when it fell in, it pointed towards #1 cylinder, which is correct for how I'm setting this up. The next thing you can do next is grab your cap, put it in the right position, and get set up. Now it's still loose because I need to put the holder on right there. So I take a Sharpie, and then what I do is I will mark right below here, right where my middle finger is pointing. I will mark right there so that I know this #1 cylinder on the rotor will essentially be right where this lines up. So I want those to be perfect. So as you can tell, I have an arrow right there where dead center of this is on the cap, where #1 cylinder is on the cap. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to turn the base of this very carefully and try to line it the best we can up from here to the center of there. Now, one way I'm going to do this is there's dead center and that's about plumb. I need to go over just a little bit, so I'll just push it over a little bit. Do the same thing. Ooh, that looks pretty perfect right there, doesn't it? So now I'm going to take this lock, get it set down on top of there, get the nut on it, and once the nut's on, then we're good to lock it down for right now. So as you can tell, I have the cap on now. If you look down there, my mark is still there. I have the hold for the distributor very snug, just so it doesn't move while we get everything else together, and then I'll back it up just a little bit. I'll be able to move this side to side once I get everything on. I know that that's probably not the best explanation of doing this. There's other people that probably explain it better, but that's how we did it. Like I said, you don't need these anymore. When you lock it out, it is locked out solid. So the next step is get your 6AL box or 6AL Ultra Plus or Ultra, whatever you're going to use, wired in, and I will show you how we're going to wire that in the next portion once everything comes in.